Andrew, graphic designer, graffiti artist from Bondi Beach area, and pretty much got into graffiti writing around the age of 15, 16, pretty much through influence of other friends and things like that, and just hearing at school that other people were doing tags, and suddenly the thought came to come up with my own tag.
And what's your own tag?
So throughout time, eventually I came up with Water, which is my AKA. A lot of my work I do in the Bondi area, but then at the same time I've also travelled to Berlin for 3 months, done quite a lot of work there, but then Newtown, Glebe, really all over Sydney. Definitely, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I think I've heard, when it comes to art, just about anything can be art. Art is in the eye of the beholder. So something like graffiti, where people are taking time to organise colours and put designs together, I mean, that would have to class as art to me, definitely. Because I guess the media is still coming to terms with the fact that, just like anything, there's people starting out, there's people that are really good at it, and some people are just, sort of mucking around with it, having a bit of fun, making a mess, just like a kid learning to skateboard and an old lady saying, oh, what's all this, racket out in the street? And then you've got some guy that's been practicing it, and he's, dropping into the skate ramp at Bondi or something and doing, big airs and all that kind of thing. So I think it's kind of like that. Well, I guess the way to sort of start out, because it's not just on a canvas, you need, say, walls, or, a bus shelter, or any kind of, space that's sort of in public that other people are going to see at some point. So you have to sort of do some scribbling on the street, or find an abandoned piece of land or something like that to practice, the craft of like graffiti. So yeah, you do pretty much need to go out in the street and do some tags, or find an abandoned piece of land. Pretty much, if you're wanting to learn graffiti, like, some stuff's going to get damaged. It takes some time to get to a point where you can control that energy and just put it in some legal space. So in the learning process, just like anything, there's a lot of mistakes and messes made and all that kind of stuff, but that's half of learning it. No, not really, because I think at that point you're just a kid and you're not really aware of the law and these different types of things. So I find that you sort of ignorantly just go out and do these things, and until you actually get a slap on the wrist or get caught by the police, you don't actually realise the strength of the law and that it exists. So I think most kids just foolishly do run out and break a few laws when they're learning. Yeah, I mean, getting true credibility as a graffiti writer, you really need to have been up on the streets, put your time in, kind of doing like the illegal stuff, and then eventually you can get to a level where you're doing the commission stuff. But for people to take you seriously, you kind of need to do a bit of dirt. Say, for example, if you're 15 or something like this, 16, you're just coming into a time where you can maybe have your driver's license, which stops you sort of, loitering gets you off the streets, basically. So, I mean, I think that things like owning a vehicle probably stops you from tagging and being on the streets and causing a ruckus. So I think it's probably better off almost for them to get their licenses, because then they're not hanging around the bus shelters and all those types of things. It's kind of strange that they're taking away the licenses from kids that are caught doing graffiti, because it puts them on, keeps them on the street. So I think that's kind of twisted. But I guess that's just another way of keeping people down that are doing the wrong thing. So yeah, it's kind of funny that it, in any way relates with cars or your driver's license. So I kind of think it's unfair, really. I think that graffiti is not that serious a crime, so I think better off to probably freak them out a little bit, and then hopefully try and help them become decent citizens. Well, I guess it comes back to the sort of being too young to sort of really know what the law is and what the new laws are. So I think myself personally, I would have just foolishly just gone out and broken the rules until I actually got busted and then didn't have the license, and then I'd probably say, oh, this sucks. I've seen it move from when I was about 16, 15 or something, so I've seen the whole thing move forward for about 15 years, and I can see that was the build up to everything that's kind of happening now. So yeah, I think it's like hugely important. It's like the art of young people, whereas most stuff is in galleries, and it was sort of like older people owned art kind of thing. Like, so I think it's hugely important. I think it's the art of our generation, and yeah, the young people of today. You come up against things that maybe you might not have like before, so that kind of affects you, and you see things like you might get busted by the police for malicious damage. So I think that affects you quite a bit. You go through quite a lot of stuff wanting to be a graffiti artist, and you can put yourself in quite a lot of danger here and there. And a lot of people don't make it through. I mean, a lot of people, do end up in jail, or they get into worse crimes, or get onto drugs and things like that. So I think graffiti, it has been a hairy sort of path, but you just have to, make your way through it cautiously and make the decisions that are right for you. There are public spaces around, but I think the problem with that is if suddenly the councils start making all these public spaces and all this kind of stuff, it'll turn into something like skateboarding, where it's just like, oh, what are we doing on the weekend? Some kids are like, what are we doing on the weekend? Let's all go off and, do pieces at the skate park or something, and then the skate park's crowded with people doing graffiti, and it all just becomes mainstream and just, a bit of a joke, and it gets played out. So I think there should be some spaces for kids to go to and things like that, but not too much, so it doesn't sort of just get to a point where every kid wants to do graffiti. Like, there has to sort of be a competitive edge to it where the art standard stays high. So it's not the easiest thing to get into. Like, you've got to have a lot of guts and energy, and got to go and find spots, and there's a lot of missioning around and things like that. So keeping it a bit sort of selective like that, or keeping it difficult to get into keeps the standard high. I kind of think if there was too many walls around, the standard would just drop, and too many people would be doing it, and it would just get played out and not taken seriously. So I think, yeah, it's important to have spaces around, but then they need to be sort of controlled by more of the artists in the scene that actually know what's going on, and can keep the standards up and keep it running all smoothly as it is. So yeah, I get a lot out of doing the artwork and looking back on it and looking at all the things I've done. It's sort of almost as a way of timelining to a degree. Hey, I was in Berlin that week, and I did that piece, and these things happened, and so I've got all these art memories of things that I've done. So there's a stack of different reasons, but I just started doing it. I always loved art, and I just felt like it was the new art that was happening at this time, and I wanted to get into it. So yeah. I mean, when it comes to just like artwork on the street, like some of it's political, like people just kind of do what they want. I mean, that's the whole point of like doing it on the street opposed to a gallery. I mean, the viewer really is only somewhat of so much importance. Like, the main thing is just kind of doing it because you want to do it. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's going to have a different opinion. Like, and And that's kind of what you want to do with art, like, shake people up a bit, like, ruffle a few feathers. So yeah, there's going to be some people that love it and some people that hate it, and I guess that's, half the point. You know, it's cool maybe if it's political, like, sometimes it's like thought inspiring and that kind of thing, but the thing is, graffiti is just raw, like, it's, sometimes it means something, sometimes it doesn't, it's just there, like, it just is, you know. People have asked me this before. I mean, I think water, is sort of, it does have a political message because it affects, all communities, all people, all governments, throughout the world. Like, I think water is probably, it's like the life source. It's one of the most important elements. So I think it does have a political sort of angle, but it is just the word water. So you can read into that, how you want. I once saw an article that actually said, if someone was caught writing water on a wall, or if you saw water on a wall, would that be considered graffiti? So, I've been busted before and it was considered graffiti, but I think there is more to the word water and seeing it just written on a wall than just, just some letters, because of, what the word actually means and the importance to everybody. I mean, I'm just so stoked myself that getting into it when I was about 15 or 16, and pretty much to me, just as a kid, I just got into artwork and an art movement that was happening. And around me, from parents to friends, everybody at this kind of time used to think that graffiti was going to be a negative thing to get into, this is going to lead you down the wrong direction, the wrong path, this is not going to be good for your life. So, I kind of didn't take people's advice, I just kind of followed my passion, because I love doing art and I was enjoying doing it. So I was like, why am I going to stop doing this when people are just telling me to, when I'm actually enjoying this? And I kind of stuck with it for, over 15 years, and now, I'm lucky enough to be getting like permission to do really cool jobs and work with really big companies and, build my CV and portfolio and all those kind of things. And I'm just happy that, it's gone in a positive direction, and I'm sure a lot of other graffiti artists are as well, because for a long time, we've been sort of fighting and putting the effort in to get it respected by the public and by,